Alright guys, today is an episode of The Best of the Rest, and we'll start off with Salzburg versus Chelsea on Tuesday. That was a really good game to watch. Chelsea were the dominant side in the first half, played some really good football, as they have done under Graham Potter in the 10 games I think he's had in charge now. Just really free-flowing, and I really like Graham Potter's ideas within football of, it's not so much like players have positions, it's more roles than positions, if that makes sense. Like they don't always play in the same positions, it's more about what they do for the team, which I find really interesting and quite enjoy watching. And yeah, they played some really good football in the first half, especially players like Havertz, Gallagher, Aubameyang, Sterling, all linking up really well, Kovacic as well. And Kovacic's goal, Jesus Christ, that is an amazing instinctive finish to open his body up like that with his weak foot and just side foot it right into the top corner like that. When like it's just fallen to him, it's not like he was expecting it to come to him either. So really well taken goal. And yeah, to be fair, Salzburg they responded really well to this. They got the equaliser early on in the second half. Really good goal. Weber crossed it into Adamu, and yeah, just well taken finish. He ruined it a little bit with the celebration. Don't know what that was all about, but we'll forgive him because his performance overall at Adamu was brilliant. In fact, he made a superb goal line clearance at the other end shortly after his goal from a Jorginho header. So yeah, he had a really good game, as did his strike partner. Okafor as well. They were, keeping Chelsea's defence busy and causing problems at times. Sesko came off the bench as well, and even he managed to make a couple of saves. But for me, Salzburg's best player overall, it was probably between Gorna Duath in midfield. I thought he was really good. He was very good at bringing the ball forwards and starting attacks. But for me, the one who stands out is probably got to be Cohen in goal, because he took two massive knocks off Havertz and Aubameyang in both halves, and still managed to put in a really good performance. Like both of the goals, there was absolutely nothing he could do about the Kai Havertz one. Just a brilliant goal from Kai Havertz, not too dissimilar to the one he scored against England about a month ago for Germany. Takes a touch, opens his body up, whips it into the top left corner. Really well taken goal, and enough to win the game for Chelsea. But yeah, another good performance from Chelsea, and Salzburg showed that, once again they've brought through another load of players which will ultimately probably be picked, like the team will be picked apart by the bigger teams in Europe, but that they are an amazing club at just producing high quality talent. Like you could see it throughout their entire team. Like they're full of players, young players who have like tons of ability, and that's probably what they'll keep doing. Like I know the Red Bull sort of, I don't want to say the word franchise because it sounds like an American term to describe things, but it's what it is, isn't it? It's like a big group of teams. You've got Red Bull Salzburg, RB Leipzig. I've called them Red Bull Leipzig before, but it turns out Germany stopped them from being that, so RB stands for something else, I can't remember what it is. And also New York Red Bulls. So, and there's many more, but yeah, they're just brilliant at producing talent, and Tuesday's game was another great showing for that talent. But yeah, Chelsea, the star performers in this game for them, I thought Thiago Silva played really well, made some really good clearances, and Havertz, Gallagher, and Sterling and Kovacic all linking brilliantly in midfield and attack throughout the majority of the game. But yeah, a really good game to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Chelsea, I think, are now through. Salzburg have got a big game against Milan on Wednesday, which will be a very good game to watch. And then in the early kickoff on Wednesday, I watched Porto beat Club Brugge by 4 goals to 0. I wanted to watch this game because I've heard a lot about Club Brugge being brilliant defensively. Simon Mignolet has been in top form for them, and their defence overall has apparently been very good. And that was not the case on Wednesday. Porto, they put in a really good attacking performance in all fairness, but Club Brugge were all over the place defensively at times. I don't know if they were missing a couple of key players in the back line, but it didn't seem like a side who hasn't even conceded a goal in the first 4 games, I think I'm right in saying, or at least 3 of them anyway. But yeah, Porto, at times they were just like getting in behind far too easily. They had a lot of chances early on, didn't take them, but they finally took one through Mehdi Taremi. Brilliant pass through by Otavio. Otavio's passing during the game was amazing at times. He's a very underrated player, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot of him at the World Cup for Portugal, because I think he would fit in very well with their team alongside players like Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, and possibly Andre Silva up front. But yeah, really good performance by Porto. Taremi took the opening goal well. And Club Brugge, they just really weren't offering much in attack. The only attacking player who I thought was putting a real shift in and creating a few opportunities was Skov. I thought he did himself justice, sort of thing. The Noah Lang, I thought was quite disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing what he's all about, but it turns out not much. Well, in this game anyway. They did get a penalty early on in the second half, though. It was just a moment of madness from Carmo in defence for Porto. Just kicks out a Club Brugge player during a corner kick, and don't have a clue what he was doing. The referee rightly checks with VAR, gives a penalty, and it got saved by Diogo Costa. I think it was Hans Van Aken who took it. Wasn't the greatest penalty ever, good save nonetheless. However, there is an encroachment by, I think it might have been Eustáquio, who went in far too early in the penalty area, and then he cleared the ball once it was safe. So that's exactly why encroachment isn't allowed, because it gives attacking or defensive players an advantage. So it got retaken. They went for a different penalty taker in Noah Lang. Same thing happens again, which is absolute madness, because it's very rare something like that happens. It's very rare you change your penalty taker, and it's very rare the keeper makes the same save twice. So I mean, fair play to Diogo Costa, because that takes some doing that. But yeah, Porto then just got back into their rhythm and were playing some amazing attacking football. Evan Nielsen got the second, a bit of just a defensive calamity for that one. The third, who got the third? Eustáquio got the third after missing a big chance in the first half. And yeah, he made up for it with this one. And the fourth one, just an amazing team goal. Just some defence splitting passes down the left hand side. Otavio lays it back to Taremi. He got his second of the game. Amazing football played by Porto. They're probably, I think they already are through to the next round. Yeah, because Atletico Madrid failed to beat Leverkusen. So yeah, they usually do go out at the round of 16 or at the very latest the quarterfinals, but they'll want to try and go a step further and try and make it to the semi-finals if they can. They'll need a nice draw for that to happen, but yeah, who knows? But yeah, some key points I've already mentioned. Otavio's passing, but I also thought the movements of Taremi and Galeno in particular, I thought just very intelligent and getting in the right positions at the right time for the passes to come in. So yeah, really good performance by Porto. Club Brugge are through into the next round, but to me, I can't see them making it to the quarterfinals, especially if they put in performances like that, because they offered very little in attack, and defensively, they've played well by all accounts so far in this season's Champions League, but that was a poor showing on Wednesday night. And then in the Saturday lunchtime kickoff, Manchester City went to Leicester 1-1-0. And it was the first game, I think, this season that Man City in the league have been without Erling Haaland up front, who has had a bit of a knock, I think, foot injury or something. And they struggled. I think that's fair to say. They had a lot of the ball in the first half, but they were struggling to get into behind. I think that's partly down to not having the presence of Haaland. You playing Julian Alvarez, who is not very used to starting games for Manchester City. Although he does look like a very good player, he looks like he could possibly benefit from having more starts in maybe the slightly easier games for Manchester City. And yeah, Leicester though, as much as I have said that, you know, City were struggling to get in behind, partly that's down to how solid Leicester were defensively, playing a 5-4-1 formation, and yeah, it worked really well. Defensively, they were really good as a unit, and players were getting back. They were in positions. They were like getting tight to the Man City players, not allowing them to have space to run into. And yeah, it was a really good game plan from Brendan Rodgers. They tried to keep it tight for about 70 minutes. Well, that was the plan anyway. Not concede, and then for the last 20 minutes go for it a little bit and see if they can nick a win or get a draw out of the game. And it was working really well. City were struggling. Grealish was probably, for me, City's their best player on Saturday. I thought he had a good game. And he was the one who got the foul for De Bruyne's incredible free kick. I mean, that is one of the best free kicks I've seen in the Premier League over the past few years. The dip on it, just like the top spin on it, the fact that he just kisses the post right in the top corner, like we're talking postage stamp. Danny Ward's nothing he's going to do about it. Fair play to Danny Ward though as well. He made a few good saves throughout the game, and also he was heavily criticised at the start of the season. People were saying, "Oh, he's not Kasper Schmeichel." Over the past few weeks, he started to show that he is capable of being a Premier League level goalkeeper, and nothing he could do about that Kevin De Bruyne free kick though. Leicester, I thought there were chances they had even at the start of the game, but they just didn't commit as many men forwards as I thought they perhaps could have. Like I know James Justin, you sort of want to keep him back because he's a right-footed player playing left wing back, but I thought Castagna, maybe they could have risked getting him forward a little bit more, but you know, they placed really well defensively, so I'm not going to knock them. The last 20 minutes, they clearly did go for it a lot more. Yuri Tielemans really unlucky hitting the bar. That was like a Paul Scholes type goal if it had gone in against. I remember he scored one against Aston Villa, but he was notorious for, you know, hanging on the edge of the box from like set piece situations and scoring worldies from like volleys. But that it was a similar type situation from Tielemans. And yeah, Leicester were unfortunate in the end not to get anything out of it, I think. I'm not saying like Man City didn't deserve to win, but I thought Leicester, especially in the last third of the game, they were creating a lot of chances. And oh my God, nearly like the own goal of the century was nearly scored by Ruben Diaz. Stones heads across the way, but heads it straight into Diaz, comes off the back of his head, and just like with a lot of pace just whizzes past Ederson's goal. If it had been the other side of the post, no chance Ederson's stopping that. So that could have been like one of the most bizarre goals own goals we've ever seen in the Premier League. Slightly disappointed it didn't happen because, you know, not even just as a Liverpool fan who, but I mean, we're not catching Man City this season, are we? But just for how bizarre it would have been. But yeah, really good, solid defensive performance from Leicester. And for Man City, it's just one where they've been dealt a tricky situation like the first time without Haaland. It was always going to be difficult because they've got used to having him up front. They've managed to get a good win at a tough place to go. So fair play to them for that. But also, I think you have to look at the positives for Leicester as well in terms of how well they performed. Now, obviously, about 10-15 minutes ago in this video, I heaped a lot of praise on Chelsea's performance over Salzburg and the way that Graham Potter's got them playing some brilliant football. But in Saturday's game against Brighton for Chelsea, it was very clear that Graham Potter at Brighton created a monster which he could not get his team to control. Brighton absolutely flew out of the blocks in the first 5 minutes. Thiago Silva had an eventful first 5 minutes. Gave the balls away twice in dangerous areas and made 2 really good goal line clearances. And the second time he gave the ball away, it did result in Trossard being able to take the ball around Kepa and stick it in the bottom corner past 2 players on the line. And yeah, that from then on, Brighton just grew in confidence and continued to get forward. They were a little bit lucky with the second and third goal, both own goals from Loftus-Cheek and Trevor Chalobah. The Loftus-Cheek one, it came from a really good corner from Solly March. Solly March was putting in some fantastic whipped corners from the left-hand side. So yeah, because he's left-footed, he was whipping them in. They were in swingers. And Loftus-Cheek just unfortunately got caught in the wrong position at the wrong time, stuck a knee out, and it's gone off the bar and in. And the one from Chalobah, brilliant play by Brighton. Estepinian, tries to put it back, but it comes off Chalobah, and Kepa has very little chance. Kepa had a bit of an injury in the first half, got subbed off for Edouard Mendy at half time, and Chelsea pulled one back shortly after the break. Brilliant cross by Gallagher, to be fair. And Havertz's header, I didn't think it was actually a great header. He put it fairly straight at Robert Sanchez, who I thought should have probably saved it, considering it did go straight at him. I think the saving grace for Sanchez is probably that it was very close range, so very little reaction time. But I thought he still probably should have saved it, to be honest. That's one thing I do find with Sanchez. He's very good with his feet, but occasionally his shot stopping can let him down. He did make a couple of good saves in the first half, though, I will say that. And yeah, Brighton's versatility, though, is just unrivalled in the Premier League. Pascal Gross playing right back, it's just unthinkable, really. And De Zerbi, to be fair to him, I know he hasn't had the results at the start of his time at Brighton, but he has had a really tough start, in fairness to him. Going to Anfield, getting a draw there, losing to Brentford away, losing to Tottenham at home, not easy fixtures, and then the disappointing one was the draw against Nottingham Forest. But this is a brilliant result to get Brighton up and running again in terms of form, and yeah, they got the 4th through Pascal Gross, who changed positions by now. Came from Julio and Ciso coming off the bench, and he caused a lot of problems when he came off the bench. Another player who I've never watched before, but as soon as he came on the pitch, looked really sharp for Brighton. Kairi Mitoma as well, it's fairly new to the Brighton team. He also had a really good performance in the attacking areas for Brighton. And yeah, they just had brilliant performances all over the pitch. Brighton, literally all of their players played well, I think it's fair to say. And yeah, Chelsea first half, they were a bit of a defensive calamity, but they did improve second half. That definitely has to be said on their behalf. It just lacked a bit of energy at times, I thought. And I thought the Brighton fans giving a bit of stick to Graham Potter. I mean, I understand it, but I think it's a little bit harsh, because when Graham Potter took over at Brighton, they weren't, I wouldn't say they were destined for relegation, but they weren't far from it. And Chris Hughton was just about keeping them up with players like Glenn Murray up front, performing quite well consistently, and Davy Proper in midfield, as well as Pascal Gross was also a key player even back then. And he's improved the team massively. In fact, the entire ethos of the club's been changed since he's been there, and they play some fantastic football. But I thought it was a little bit harsh, the reception he got from the Brighton fans. But a fantastic performance from Brighton nonetheless. And then in the Saturday tea time game, Fulham played Everton, and I think the best way to sum this game up was that it was a game of half chances where lots of shots were taken, but there were very little clear-cut chances. Fulham probably had the more attempts on goal than Everton. I haven't checked the stats, but that came across during the game. Everton, most of their threat came from out in wide areas from Damari Gray and Anthony Gordon, and Calvert-Lewin got in some good positions, but they struggled to get the ball to him at times. Fulham probably did create the better chances, but I think the one thing that let them down a little bit was as well as Everton defending really well and stopping them from getting in dangerous areas, and also Pickford pulling off some really good saves. I thought Mitrovic didn't look as sharp as he usually has done this season. I can't remember how many goals it is he scored, but I think he's on something like 8 or 9 goals already this season, which is like incredible form to start the season for him. Like, it's a continuation of the form that he had in the Championship last season. Obviously, it's a level above in the Premier League, but yeah, his touch just didn't seem as sharp. There was also a bit of a talking point during the first half of should Mitrovic have remained on the pitch for a challenge on Idrissa Gana Gueye. For me, I thought, yeah, it's not a good challenge, but there's no malicious intent at all. It's an honest attempt to play the ball. The studs up it doesn't make for great viewing, but I think it'd have been a harsh red card, to be honest. Like, he's not put a lot of force into it. So for me, I think a yellow card was the correct decision from the referee. The one player who I thought stood out was Willian. He was a constant threat to Everton's defence, who did deal with him quite well, but he still created quite a few chances on occasion. And he was the standout player on the pitch, I thought. Pickford's just is in really good form at the moment, which is good going into the World Cup. Like, with how he's playing at the moment, his place in the England starting 11 will be nailed on, I would have thought. Ramsdale's in very good form as well, but I think because of what Pickford's done for England at the previous couple of tournaments, the World Cup and the Euros, I think he has to be the number one for Southgate's men. But yeah, Fulham at home, they do seem to be a different side than away from home. I keep saying this, but I have a theory that because Craven Cottage, the pitch doesn't look very wide. It does look slightly more narrow than most Premier League pitches, and I think it must, abide by the rules, because otherwise someone would have picked up on it by now. But I do think it really does suit the way Fulham play. So it's a good fit for the way that Fulham play, because they are quite a vertical team. Just get the ball forward quickly and aggressively. It was an interesting midfield battle as well. Two very hard-working, but also at the same time quite creative midfields. Like, you got the creative player in each midfield in Iwobi and Pereira, and you've got the two workers. For Everton, it's Gay and Onana, and for Fulham, it's obviously Palhinha and Harrison Reed, who's been in really good form lately. Both of them have, in fact. And yeah, they were. A draw was probably a fair result, because given how the game went. It wasn't the most exciting game of all time. That definitely has to be said. Like, the last game that's played on Match of the Day, it's never the most exciting, is it? That, like, even in the studio, that they were struggling to think of what to say about the game, or at least that came across to me. Anyway, but yeah, two teams that are going to finish mid-table this season and be nowhere near the drop. I would have thought Lampard's got Everton set up in a solid way, and Marco Silva's doing really well at Fulham this season. So yeah, two solid mid-table teams played each other on Saturday. And then the final game I wanted to cover today was the late kickoff on Sunday. Although slightly earlier than usual late kickoff, I actually turned it on and it was 2 minutes into the game because I thought it was a 4:30 kickoff, but it turns out it was 4:15. Slightly surprising. And yeah, I'll go through the game first before there's a couple of things I do want to talk about. United, they just look so much better defensively compared to last season. Martinez, Maguire, Dalot, Shaw all looked superb defensively. Really good back four and performed really well. David De Gea as well, second half made some superb saves. Ridiculous how he is not in Spain's 55-man provisional squad. Like this, I refuse to believe that even though his standards may have dropped off over the past 2 or 3 years, and he had a poor World Cup for Spain 4 years ago in Russia, I refuse to believe that there are 5 better goalkeepers. David De Gea is still a better goalkeeper than Robert Sanchez, and yeah, I'm amazed by that, to be honest, that he's not in the provisional squad for Spain for the World Cup. But yeah, United defensively really good. And Rashford, he took his goal brilliantly. It's an amazing header, gets up really well, and bullet header past. Can't remember who it was in goal at that time. It was either Fabianski or Ariola. I think it might have been Fabianski at that point before he got injured. But yeah, really good header, no chance for stopping it, and it was a really good cross by Eriksen as well. Benrahma was West Ham's best player for me. I thought he produced some moments of absolute magic, and I saw people comparing it to Anthony, what he did on Thursday, and there's a massive difference. Okay, Anthony's is pure showboating. There's no advantage to what Anthony does. It's just like there to, this looks really cool, watch this. Whereas Benrahma, that roulette, Maradona, whatever you want to call it, that spin he did was just unreal. It took him past the player, so there was purpose for it. It was just an amazing piece of skill, and he had moments like that a few times throughout the game. He was West Ham's best player. I think that's fair to say. And the 2 saves from De Gea, I need to mention them again, like the one from Zuma, the header, and the Declan Rice shot from about 30 yards. Brilliant saves, just amazing. And West Ham did pile the pressure on in the second half, but United dealt with it quite well, whereas last season I think they could have wilted under the pressure. But yeah, United looks so much better. Ronaldo was back in the team for United though, and to be honest, I wouldn't have had him back in the team because if you look at what they did, so he's been poorly behaved for the entirety of this season. So, well, not obviously every minute of every day, but there's been multiple occasions throughout this season where he's been childish, and his punishment was that he was dropped for 1 game. Anthony does a bit of showboating. Okay, it's not great, and it was a little bit embarrassing. And he's been given the same punishment to someone who has walked out of the stadium, not gone in the dressing room, not been with his teammates after such an important win against Tottenham. And this is the second or third time this season he's stepped out of line. So I think the fact that Ten Hag has given them the same punishment is really harsh on Anthony and really lenient on Ronaldo. To be honest, because Ronaldo is showing himself to be very childish. The thing before the game about, well, obviously we all saw a couple of months ago he ignored Carragher after Carragher has given him not giving him criticism, but basically just said what everyone else is thinking about how United are better off without him because he's not the player he was, and he is at a stage of his career where retirement is going to come soon because he even people say he's got the body of a 20-year-old. No, he hasn't. He can't do the things he could do 10 years ago. And yeah, it's just ridiculous. And Gary Neville is, for me, rightly criticised him. And he's ignored a teammate who played a big role in his career at the start. So very childish from him, I think. And he made a point of ignoring him as well by shaking Louis Saha and Redknapp's hand, but not Neville's. So for me, very childish from Ronaldo. Brilliant performance from United. And West Ham slightly unlucky.